Thank you very much. All right. So welcome to today's IMSTEM Network meeting. Today's May 21st, 2020 at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. And this is Mimi Lufkin. I'm the CEO Emerita at the National Alliance for Partnerships and Equity. I'd like to, first of all, introduce today to you the IMSTEM network for those of you who maybe this is your first activity you've participated in, or as a good reminder for those of us who are involved in the network. So Lauren, if you want to go to the next slide. The mission of IMSTEM is to broaden participation and close achievement gaps in grades 7 through 12 and undergraduate STEM education by scaling effective practices that close these gaps at the critical junctures that currently limit participation of underrepresented students in STEM pathways. IMSTEM is a collective impact project that brings together a network of organizations that are committed to this mission across the 6 Intermountain states: Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. You can move to the next slide, Lauren. We fulfill this work through the functioning of 5 different work groups. If you're interested in participating in any of these work groups, please go sign up at napequity.org/IMSTEM. Just to tell you a little bit about the work groups, we have one that has been looking at data and metrics and data collection and reporting across the 6 states, identifying resources and sources of data where common metrics can be looked at in terms of underrepresented group access to STEM and CTE across all 6 states. There's also a communications and resource sharing work groups that's very involved in the development of our monthly e-newsletter and communicating via LinkedIn and Twitter. And you'll see as we go through the slides, the Twitter handle will show up every once in a while. And go to LinkedIn, look for our IMSTEM group on LinkedIn as well. The asset map building work group is working on right now developing a pilot asset map for the state of Nevada. There are existing asset maps that have been developed in Idaho and in Wyoming and in New Mexico, all of which are linked in the newsletter that comes out every month, as well as on our website, so go check those out. The effective practice scaling work group has been involved in developing a rubric for evaluating STEM equity programming, and for funders and for program developers and for program implementers to help them really focus equity in the center of your work. And lastly, the pilot monitoring group has been looking at outcomes from NAEP's implementation of its professional development across the 6 states, and recently completed a survey of participants with some very interesting outcomes that are reported in our newsletter and also on the website. So we can go to the next slide. So let's talk about a path to educational equity by looking at what's going on in a couple of states here in the IMSTEM network. And Lauren, you can go to the next slide so I can introduce the 2 of you. This is Lauren Jones, is the CTE Program Director for Special Populations Counseling and Equity at the Colorado Community College System in Denver, Colorado. And waves, Lauren. Hey, Lauren. And Sanal Bhakta is the CTE Administrator at Clark County School District in Las Vegas, Nevada. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton to Lauren and Sanal. Take it away.
All
Except
right.
for, you know what?
Welcome.
No, stop.
No? Thanks.
Stop. I forgot to do the polls. I forgot to do the polls. You all need to keep me in line. I'm sorry. I've been doing, this is my 3rd webinar of the day. I'm a little bit punchy. All right, you all. So we have a couple of questions for you. We want to know, I'm going to send out this first poll to all of you. As you know, NAEP, or as you may or may not know, NAEP is doing a series of these webinars overall for nationally, and the last one is on May 14th. It was the first of the Let's Talk webinars focused on the same topic as today's activity. And we'd like to know who on today's webinar actually participated on the 14th, so we have a sense of people's knowledge of the discussion that happened last time. So I'm going to go ahead and, whoops, I guess I'm not. Kathleen, something just happened and the poll disappeared. I apologize, everyone.
We can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's on the screen, Mimi. I can see it.
Okay, well, that's good, but I just got kicked out of the meeting, I think.
Okay.
Nope, I'm back.
Okay.
Man, I tell you, technology is so much fun when it works, and when you get a little wonky about it, it's kind of crazy. So I'm back now. I want to close the poll. Here we go. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to share the results. Tell me that you can see this.
Yes, we can.
All right, so we have a mixed bag. So Lauren
nice.
and Sanal, keep this in mind. But approximately half the people participated on the 14th and half did not. All right, I'm going to ask another question just for our own benefit. We'd like to know a little bit about you, and we'd like to know how you would describe yourself, whether you're a state agency person, a school person, meaning from a secondary system, or involved as a college staff, counselor, faculty member, or from a community-based organization, or something other than that. And if you're an other person, we'd like for you to describe yourself in the chat. So the responses are still bouncing up and down a little bit. I'll wait till they settle before I close the poll. Still getting more responses. Oh, I think we're, still getting responses. Everybody voted? Identify who you are. They're still bouncing around. One more second.
Limited 1,000 words.
Sanal, we're getting some.
Sanal, you need to probably call in. Your audio is pretty garbled.
Sorry.
All right, so here's the response. Looks like our largest group of people are from college, the college level. So I'm assuming colleges and universities, counselors, faculty, and staff, it's about 32%. We have a good, and then even distribution pretty much across state agencies, school administrators, and community-based organizations. And about 14% said there are others. So we're asking people to put that in the chat. You can see we've got folks from all over the place. Some people work in a foundation, someone who's at a STEM center, person who's an evaluator. So interesting responses. I'm going to go ahead and put that away for now. And there, Lauren, you have control back. Go for it. And I think Sanal's probably working on his audio. So if you want to go ahead and start up, we'll be good to go.
Sure thing. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everybody. Wonderful to be here and to see each of you participating. And this will feel like a little bit of a conversation. We're going to ask you to interact with us as best as you can within the chat box, most likely. And just to fully disclose, both Sanal and I are here to really say and be facilitators, just like it says on the screen. We aren't necessarily the ones that have the answers or even the ones that have exact solutions. So together as a group, we're going to be researching and thinking and brainstorming and sharing some solutions. And that is an important thing to note for our time together today, is that you won't necessarily have quick answers, but we will be putting our brains together to come up with solutions. And we will be solution focused, not necessarily problem based, because we're all faced with a problem right now. Lots of inequities are now not new, right? Let's please own this, that these inequities that we are seeing forefront in our faces right now are not new. They were just chosen to be covered up and ignored over time, especially in education. And so now with our environments being they are, the way that they are, our learning environments, we are at a place where we cannot ignore them anymore. So just to set the stage, here's some stats for us coming from an article that came out in the New York Times probably about 2 weeks ago. So we're looking at families from affluent backgrounds being 4 grade levels ahead of students who are in poverty by the 8th grade. Okay, that's big. Again, maybe not new, but we're just seeing it more prevalently. We've got a breakdown of students in colleges coming from the highest upper echelon socioeconomically than those who are in a lower economic standing. Again, maybe not new, but we're staring at it now. We cannot ignore it. And then we may, if we choose to, and if we're disciplined enough, and if our leaders are enlightened enough to make sure that we give resources to the bottom 80%, just the same way that we tend to give to the top 20%. So if you want to check out this article, please do. The other article that's hyperlinked in the words that are below is this concept of a visiting year. Visiting year comes from the idea of participating in a community college or a technical area college for training and getting some credits out of the way and exploring and getting to know oneself in the 13th grade level, if you will, especially if you have high school seniors who are graduating who had plans to go to 4-year campuses and will most likely not be able to go in person in the fall. And so this visiting year is the concept about staying maybe closer to home, attending community colleges, maybe pursuing career and tech ed backgrounds. And so that's my little way of advocating for both the houses that I work for, career and tech ed and community colleges. The other stats to help us create a foundation of where our conversations are going to go is to really pay more close attention to those disparities that have always existed but are just exacerbated now, like we continuously have to say, okay? So this second bulleted point is definitely a good one to talk about as well, because we want to ensure that we're including our students of color in all ways, especially if we can be as disciplined as possible to close the gaps now that have already existed. There are some hyperlinks on the bottom here just to keep you in the know, and I don't have it, and actually I'm going to put it into the chat box, but there is a new tool that was created that helps us track the economic growth right now after and during our current pandemic. It's called tracktherecovery.org, and it's hyperlinked at the bottom there, where I describe the economic impacts of COVID-19 on people, businesses, and communities across the U.S. So you could look at your state, you could look at your region, and get a feel for what's going on in terms of the economic changes. And I think the reason why I like it is because, and I just learned of it yesterday, is that it actually does a decent job of bringing the attention to the disparities and the inequities that we're seeing all over the place now. All right, so again, we know these things are here. We are also very familiar with NAEP's mission and their graphic here that I absolutely adore. I use it in every single training that I do, even if it's not equity related per se. That's actually my trick. I always get people to attend things and then I win them over on talking about equity. But the piece here is that we are not doing things for all students. We're doing things for each student. We aren't doing things for all families. We're meeting each family's need, individual. And so ensuring that every time that we're using the term all, that's conveying the left side of the graphic. That's equality. Whereas if we are so thinking about each and every, then we are making sure that we are practicing the art and the science of equity. So that's our concept for today, is we're just going to make sure that we are coming up with solutions and ideas and best practices or promising practices for diverse instructional design, for diverse learning styles, ensuring that each learner thrives. And even if that learner is the adult in the family, we're learning from each other right now too. Right, Sonal? So how about you kick us off with some of the first conversations?
Yes. Can you hear me? All right. So, what are we seeing in our community? Just to share a little bit of what's going on, here in my community, one thing I noticed right away is that outside in the street, I saw more boys playing in the streets than girls, which was very interesting, because I think that goes back to maybe some of the stereotypes and gender challenges that we have. It says, hey, why aren't girls playing in the street? Boys are outside throwing the ball around, kicking the ball. What are the girls doing at this point? So just just think about that as far as what we're seeing in the communities, because really education is all about the community. And Lauren, if you want to pop up some of those other questions, but really, we have to look at, those marginalized groups, right? We always knew they were there. What are we doing to provide support, resources to them? Are we ignoring someone that is unintentional, or are we really meeting the expectation as far as providing education? And I love that equality versus equity piece, because not only my school district, but many school districts across the country, one of the first things they started doing is that let's get Chromebooks in every student's hand. That's equality, folks. That's not equity. That's equality, right? And we really need to have that equity lens on to ensure that each student, just like Lauren said, we're addressing each student's needs and providing a valuable educational experience for each student. So we could probably move on to the next slide.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, though, too, we've gotten some chat conversations and all, so maybe this is a cool way. If you do have any of possible solutions to the not ignoring it anymore, what is happening to the most marginalized, go ahead and put that in there, because we are noticing that some folks are saying that there are conversations occurring right now around and including the Latino and Native communities. They're beginning to really dive into the inequities, and we should too, absolutely. We've got some comments about how there's a wonderful speaker, by the way, Aruha Benjamin, who did a great conversation with the NC WIT group just the other day to really discuss equity versus equality as well. So write that down, everybody, if you're interested in Googling that person. And then if anybody's got any answer to our first question here, that would be awesome. Because Sanal and I both, when we chatted about this, we thought it was really profound to think about, we're in our homes, we're working, we're connected to the screen, we're seeing our own people around us, but what about the people outside of us, that community? What are you noticing? And I'll switch to the next slide too, just in case, but if people are putting in some ideas, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So we've
yeah,
got
I think
a
it's great. One of the things that, I think one of the things that, we'll start to hear about, starting now, going into June, is what does reopening schools or reopening education look like, right? CDC has pushed out some stuff, some local entities have pushed out some stuff, but really, what does it look like? And is it necessary? Do we need to do that, or do we need to look at education in a different way? No matter what happens, we should basically rise up to the challenge and look to how can we improve the system that we already have in place? How can we improve, change, innovate, make a difference so that every student is taken care of? So,
yeah. So in New Mexico, they're working with partners to do twice weekly grab-and-go meal sites for students. I'm assuming that's going to really address the most marginalized populations, even though I believe, at least in my local district, it's for each student. So it doesn't matter their status. They can still get food, grab-and-go meals for their family. We've got ideas being talked. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say our district announced pretty much for the entire summer that we would continue to provide meals for students, which is great because you never think about food impacting a student and their educational experience, but it absolutely does. Whether they get a good breakfast in the morning, whether they get to eat throughout the day, before they're doing any activities in the evening, is their food stimulating their brain and all that stuff? Is there stuff? So,
yeah, it's the hierarchy of needs, Maslow. So we've got school buses coming out to also assist with wireless, and that's a good lead into this new tool as well. It's linked below you, and it's a broadband access mapping tool. So now, this is you in Nevada. Talk to us.
Yeah. So this shows broadband access, right? So not necessarily Wi-Fi access. So just to make sure that everyone's clear. So Wi-Fi different, but broadband, the physical hardwired connection and access. So for the most part, my school district is Clark County, so the bottom corner of that area. And I'll talk more about our school district here in just a second. But right now it shows good, right? It shows good that we have a lot of broadband access. But keep in mind, we're a large metropolitan area. So that was going to happen anyway, right? The areas that are darker are those rural areas where it's not a large metropolitan area. There may be only one road going through town or just one traffic light. So obviously there's a lot of our state that does not have broadband access. So, but how does it look for Colorado, Lauren?
Mm-hmm. Hey, it's so similar as well. Absolutely. So you do take a notice that that darker color is almost 100% of the individuals have no access to broadband. And so we were actually, Sanal and I were also just chatting about the fact that not only are educators responsible for their cell phone minutes, and they're having an increase in cell phone usage, and then they have to pay for that, right? Because it increases their bill. Folks like me in my state office, I'm privileged enough that my state office takes care of that increase in bill. But that's not the case for so many of our educators and young people. And in this case then too, as you notice in the southwest, southeast, on the western side of our state in Colorado, yes, very rural, but I've been there. And in fact, there are 2 community colleges in that southeast corner, 2 community colleges. So that means a lot of faculty members are not even able to successfully have a virtual learning environment because of that lack of broadband. And so these are major conversations to have and to just gain awareness of, and then to make others aware of it too, right?
Yeah, and especially the whole cell phone minute use. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. Teachers now, many of us don't have landlines, right in our homes, so we're using our cell phones. So, and teachers may not want their cell phone number going to a parent or a student. If they're trying to call and do attendance or follow up. Thankfully, if you haven't heard of Google Voice is a great way to basically mask your cell phone number or use a different number so that it doesn't show up as your personal number. But Lauren, like we were discussing, I've used more minutes in the last 2-3 months than I have in the last 2-3 years on my cell phone. And I feel fortunate that I do have unlimited minutes and unlimited data, but not everybody is in that same situation. So definitely think we want.
Yeah, and to answer a question, this is not just a school reporting database. This is community-based. So we're still talking people that their sense of employment is not able to occur if they need to access internet to do their work, if they live in an environment where they chose to potentially live as well, right? So it's almost like people are getting chastised for even choosing the quality of life that they wanted. I know also some educators were so in touch with virtual environments when they're at a school building that they chose to not have a virtual environment at their home. But now they are being forced to, right? So it's that piece as well. Yes. And there are some ideas in the chat box and all about some folks are noticing that there's some grant monies being passed around, and our businesses and industry are probably waking up to this inequity as well. So therefore, there could be some help coming in terms of bonds and grants and scholarships and awards monetarily.
Yep,
but
absolutely, with the federal funds and the CARES Act. So yeah.
Yeah, and local ones too. I'm noticing in the chat box they're coming up too. But Sanal, for you and I in Colorado and Nevada, broadband also is an environmental conversation too, because of the migratory paths that our animals take, because you and I have very similar animals in our states. And so that's usually Colorado's defense when they say that's why we don't have broadband, is because we don't want to interrupt the ground where we have our minerals and our animals that we want to save and rescue. But they might have to do something now, huh? So speaking of Colorado,
we just have to watch out for our aliens in Area 51. So that's
right. That's right. Those aliens, everybody, be careful. They might come to the rescue, huh? Maybe that's part of our solution.
Maybe.
Well, just a quick snapshot, everybody. Here's the state of Colorado career and technical education facts, just to let you know what's going on. I know that I Am STEM is focused at the middle level, so I just wanted to point that out. The current number of our middle school career and tech ed programs totally from the 1920 school year is now 35,000, upwards close to 36,000 students statewide. And we've got a total of 169 middle school CTE programs. They go through a program approval system. This is our 9th year of offering official middle school CTE programs that do not still receive Perkins funding. They use what we call CTA dollars, which is a Colorado Technical Act contribution to Perkins. I'm not going to get into that real fast, but just to know that with Perkins 5 coming out and they're allowing the language of middle grades, that does support teachers and schools to invest more creatively in middle school CTE programming. But I would also like to take a note here of our graduation rate, and just to honor the fact that we're in graduation season right now, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of high school seniors that are missing out on our culturally appropriated United States rite of passage, which is high school graduation. Such a rite of passage that we've made it. I mean, it's in movies, it's in storybooks, it's in our history that our grandparents and great-grandparents break down for us, right? And then it's our juniors who are a little nervous about what their senior year is going to look like and what their future is beyond. It's our current 8th graders who are no longer in middle school, they're in high school, and what is that going to look like and sound like for them? It's our 5th graders who are now entering middle school for the first time. And I know many of us here on this line probably don't want to go back to middle school, right? We know how awkward that is and how tough it is. And now here they are trying to figure out what is it going to look like and feel like for them that next school year. So just want to honor that that is the time now that we're in, and those are the inequities that we're facing right now. And it's a lot of grief and loss, right? Lots of grief and loss. So then also I wanted to point out that because we are talking about equity, this is Colorado's CTE Strategic Plan. It's going to be going on until the year 2024, we believe, and this has prompted us from Perkins 5, and many of you might feel the same way, and then many of your states are working with their Career and Tech Ed state office to support their strategic plan. But I wanted to point this out to know that foundationally, we are viewing all of our 5 goals through the lens of equity and inclusion. So that's at least on paper. It's at least what we are saying and out loud. Now in practice, it's going to take some time, as many of you probably know, even though right now is the perfect moment to honor the inequities and to do things differently and to do things better. The other piece that we find in our action plan is we're going to reach out to a diverse intentionality for our stakeholders, so that's also a great thing. We're going to really think about high quality CTE programming, connect with our education feeders and our workforce system, and then identify barriers and the related barriers and the unintended consequences that come from things. But also where I circled is we focus on talent development and what we call post-secondary workforce readiness, a wonderful teachable acronym, PEWR. When you say it or read it, it sounds like power. And that's what this is. Post-secondary workforce readiness is when it's the way that we interpret career and college readiness at the national level. So just to let you know, it's got some competencies, and these are the pieces that we actually see in our current learning environments. When students are working from home or teaching from home or learning from home or learning from wherever their structure is, it is actually these competencies that are going to be probably happening the most. And it's not necessarily math, it's not necessarily science, it's not necessarily social studies, but it is a work readiness that's going to allow them to be transferable after this moment that we're experiencing right now. So knowing that, that was kind of one of our first questions we wanted to ask as well. When you think about those essential skills, those competencies that I just had listed, how do you notice them happening in your learning environments if you're aware of them? I know for me, I know that a lot of school counselors, because I am a school counselor, by the way, so I connect mostly with school counselors statewide in Colorado. And I know for me that many of those school counselors have reported that those competencies, and I'll go back for just a quick second, this is what is happening every day through older siblings making lunch for their younger siblings, for example. Younger siblings helping out more within the household than they've ever done before. So both of those things would be learning independently. It would be problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration, teamwork. They're probably using communication more than they thought they would. And then for many of us, including the adults, it's time management. And we're thinking about how can I manage both my work job and then my family job? And then as students, they're thinking, how can I manage both my academic lifestyle, my social lifestyle, and then now my family lifestyle, because we're all in this together. So we're just pointing it out more. And it's these competencies that will be happening all throughout our learning environment. So as I put in this little Google document that I'm referencing here, this is a giant resource document that State of Colorado, myself and my friends at Department of Education here in Colorado, we put together that helps support exactly these power skills. How can we help teachers, and in this case, it could be the parental unit, which we're going to put up a poll in a second about that. It helps them demonstrate their learning in this way. So it's doing learning, but not necessarily saying that it's science or math or social studies. So I just wanted to make sure that you had that Google document. And Mimi, if you want to, let's go ahead and put that poll up right now, because we want to find out how many of you are also being the teachers. You're now the educator, but you also might be the family leader as well. The parental unit is what I like to call you. So how many of you are also responsible for schooling a young person living in your home during this pandemic? And maybe I'll just trust that you are seeing the people responding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're still collecting a few. I think it's settled down. I'll go ahead and close it and share it. Can you see it?
Yep. So most of us are not, and some are solely, and then some have shared responsibility. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. So in that case, my friends, what are you noticing if you are wearing those two hats? If you're solely the responsible one for a young person, or if you're shared responsibility of a young person, what are you noticing? What are you seeing with this demonstration of competencies, either in your own home, or even if you're doing some virtual happy hours and connecting with your friend group, what are you noticing with their young people? Or you're checking out the window and you're seeing what's going on in the street. Go ahead and put some of those in the chat. And Sonal, I know that you had a story or two, especially about our example here. Do you want to expand on that? What'd you notice?
Yeah, and you have to refresh my memory. We talked about so many stories, but I think you know that question asked about specifically whether you're doing any schooling at home, right? Supporting a young person in their education. Besides the fact that you're a teacher, an educator, but other challenges being at home or in that learning at home situation, right? Doing your job at home, whether you have to care for a loved one, or you have pets, or a roommate, or even if you live at home or something like that, this stay-at-home situation can really mentally put a strain on everyone. And it's just a matter of, we're all human beings, and we all need to make sure that, even though it's social distancing, that doesn't mean that we're supposed to be not social. It's more physical distancing, right? So as human beings, we need that socializing or that interaction with people, or it gives us energy, excitement, that engagement, everything like that. So those are definitely some challenges that need to be considered as we move forward with.
Yeah, and we've got folks interacting with us in the chat box here too, and definitely letting us know that it's just frankly not working. There's that, right? And gosh, you're correct. We're not alone in this. There's a high level of fatigue. There's a high level of frustration. We've got folks telling us that, yeah, it's frustrating for parents and students alike. Trying to get our students to focus, to really manage the shared responsibilities of being the worker and the parental unit as well. We've got some kids connecting online while others cannot access, right? So there's just straight up inequities here. We've got...
Yeah. One of the things that I'm noticing with the chat is that, it's the amount of time that the students are at home are busy, right? Because we are so used to, like for myself, dropping off my daughter and picking her up like 6-7 hours later, right? The challenge is how do we continue that? And at home, my daughter is not busy for 6-7 hours, right? So she may be busy for 2-3 hours, and then she's done. So what does she do the next 4 or 5 hours? I still want her to be productive. I want her to still learn or different things like that. So that is a huge challenge, and I'm not sure what the right answer is or what we can do, because sending home 7 hours worth of worksheets is not the answer, right? We all know that. Sending home 7 hours of videos for them to watch is not the answer either, even though they may already be doing that on Insta or TikTok or something like that. But as far as educational content, I don't know what the answer is, and maybe that's where education needs to change and pivot and really take a hard look at saying, hey, what are we doing that was right that we can improve upon, right? So, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like that's where a lot of folks' brains are going to, is we're recognizing the privilege as well of parental units to have the capability of being able to educate and think of ideas and think of experiential experiences that helps teach those competencies or helps teach those academic skills. But that's a privilege. That's not everybody. That's not every parental unit that we have. So we've got a lot of parents who are in the service industry. I know I've heard people talk about job shadows, like doing mentoring and job shadows virtually with their parents who are working. So I know I'm going to say the word essential worker, but I know that even has its own inequity flair to it. So I don't mean that everybody, but that's what's being conveyed. Everybody's essential. But we are using this term essential worker.
Yeah,
and they can, students can.
Right, and I was going to say that's a great idea, having students job shadow, right, or go to work with a parent. But the challenge you run into is that you're showing them a career option of that parent, right, or that adult in their household. And really, what education's job is to show students all the career options that are available to them. So a parent may be working a service industry job that's essential, and they can take their son or daughter to work, right? But what if that son or daughter has higher aspirations, right? Well, wants to be more of a white collar or professional or an entrepreneur or something. They're not seeing those types of careers. So definitely, it's great doing that, but we also want to be mindful of really showing students the whole picture, right? Not just having a college conversation, but a college and career conversation. Because no matter what, everyone's got to have a career. So we're really kind of moving and thinking about that as we move forward. So, but yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
We'll move on to the
and
next
then exactly, yeah, we will. And some slides or some chats did say too that they can't even find their students, right? And you might be feeling that right now, Sonal, like you really just can't even find the students in your district.
Yeah, it's tough. So here, if you want to click through these slides, Lauren. So just so that everyone knows, Clark County School District, we're the 5th largest in the country. We're a majority minority school district, and we're actually, I believe, the largest geographic area, because Nevada, we're organized by county. So the entire county of Clark, that includes Las Vegas, Laughlin, Boulder City, Mesquite, and all these rural communities, as well as inner city, metropolitan, suburban communities. So, and then I want to share some stats. This is all pre-BARN, right? Pre-COVID-19, how we're looking at STEM and some of the work that's been happening over the last 5 years, which has been very positive. And as you can see, the number of students we're having enrolled, both male and female, are increasing. And the best part is we're having more females go into that, which is great. As you can see, from the 17-18 school year to 18-19 school year, we had over 1,000 more females actually consider taking STEM and CTE courses, either in middle school and high school. And if you go to the next slide, Lauren, one thing that I'm extremely proud of is that how many more middle school girls are taking STEM and CTE classes. So we're actually seeing about 6% more, which is great, because girls, underserved, underrepresented populations have always been those pathways have been like quote unquote non-traditional career pathways. So to finally see that we're getting those student populations to take more of those classes more than the traditional student demographic populations is great. We still have a lot more work to do, right? Even though they're taking it, there's still a gap, right? So we're starting to shrink that gap down. And keep in mind that only took us 5 years to get there. So we still have a lot more work to do. So now the question is, we've done all this work over the last 5 years. COVID-19 hit, this global pandemic. Now I'm worried about going forward. Are we still going to see that increase? Are we still going to see that interest? What else can we do to continue encouraging, supporting girls, underserved, underrepresented populations, African Americans, Latinos, Latinx, all that. So yeah. So I think we go to our next question.
Sure. So now I think you are, and Kathleen says the same thing, you yourself, sir, have played a giant role in that increase. So kudos to you.
It's a team effort. It's always a team effort. But I appreciate it. But on behalf of the team, and this, I want to share this picture. This shows you the diversity of and the interest of our students wanting to pursue tech and STEM type curriculum. This was a after school, a Saturday program for 12 weeks where and it's a program by NCWIC called Aspire IT, where one of our high school students offered this program where girls could learn about coding and engineering. And over the 12 weeks, these were on Saturdays for 2 to 3 hours in person. She only had 2 students miss a Saturday out of 12 weeks, which is tremendous. It's like a 97% attendance rate, which is fantastic. So I just want to share that, and our district's mission, being truly number one for kids, and actually I would add to that, number one for all kids, right? All kids. We want to make sure that we're addressing that equity piece. So okay.
For each of our young people, now each of them.
Yeah, each of our young people. So let's talk. Go ahead.
No, you go.
All right. So schedule, calendar. So we want to kind of throw it out to everyone. Feel free to pop it in your chat. But I know both myself and Lauren have some opinions on schedules and calendars. I know one thing. After I did some research, our school calendar, our school schedule is based upon agriculture, right? Farming. And now with agriculture and farming being more automated, and where careers and the jobs are going to different industries, how valuable or how relevant is our traditional school calendar? Going to school in the fall, finishing up in the spring, getting summers off, how valuable is it? Does it make sense? Should it be more year-round? Should it be staggered? Should you be able to pick the 9 months that you go to school? Well, maybe I want to start school in February and end in November or something like that. I mean, what's your thought on this? What do you think, Lauren?
Oh gosh, what do I think? I think what I've been hearing statewide is that this is finally becoming a strategy for a solution, and I say finally because you're absolutely right. We've been stuck in the agriculture calendar. We've also just been stuck with higher ed admissions requirements. I don't know if many of you feel the same way, but those higher ed admissions requirements are what prescribes what happens in the high school. But by law, for Colorado, there is one class that is required. That's it, by law. And it is 1 semester of civics. So if that's our only requirement, why are we doing things the way that we were doing them? And to your point perfectly, Sonal, we could shake it up. We could pivot it. We could make it a February through March only. It could be each student does it differently. It doesn't have to be the masses do everything the same way. I have heard talk of potentially renting out school buildings right now so that they could increase their cash flow, because if they're not being used, then somebody else can use it, right? And we've often said that with empty buildings, how maybe our homeless population could be served better, or maybe it's an innovative business that perhaps our young people are the ones creating. So that's kind of what I've been hearing. How about everybody else? You've been noticing in the chat box. 4 day school weeks definitely are already happening.
Yeah, I love one of the things on the chat talking about ending school like right around Thanksgiving, right? And if you think about it, from Thanksgiving to December, right, everyone's super happy. Well, that's one thing, right? The holidays, vacations, all that stuff. But how much learning is truly happening, right? Right? How much new content is being delivered? Is it more projects? So that's an interesting conversation. You know, ending the school year in Thanksgiving, and then you just have an extended break, and then boom, when January hits, you're back on. One of the things also I want to drill down to, what about the school day itself, right? You know, getting up in the morning, going to school 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and then ending at 2, 3, or 4 in the afternoon. And I know I've heard the thing about, oh, well, we have to do it that way because we have sports, we have after-school activities. And I was like, you know what? Why is something like that driving what we do, right? Right. When we know brain research and brain balance, I mean, tells us that, you know, adults and students, you know, their brains just aren't functioning at 100% at 7 in the morning. You know, it's more like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., right? And then, you know, you hit your peak around 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, right? So, you know, should we look at sports differently? Should we have maybe the school day split up? Come in at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., you're at school for 2, 3 hours, go do your after school sport, and then you come back to school to finish out the day, and you're done by 6 o'clock or something. I don't know, but I think looking at how we start and stop school, and especially I heard this early on from one of our teachers. One of our teachers, she taught a class that was traditionally at 7 a.m. in the morning, right? So now, during the stay-at-home order, she had her class at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And what she told me was that she had so much more engagement, over 50% more engagement from the students at 1 p.m. than at 7 a.m. when she was doing the online chat versus in-person lectures and stuff. So it's just interesting to hear the story.
Mm-hmm. And even later into the evening too, Sonal, I've been hearing a lot of that as well, is that just gathering around 8 o'clock, 8 to 10 p.m. seems to also be another mechanism, especially for our younger people, but also for our parents who need to work during those work hours, and then they can actually contribute to the learning when it is later in the evening too. Absolutely. So we're pivoting, we're shaking things up. We're, as some people even said in the chat, we're imploding the brick and mortar concept and putting it opposite. So instead of flipped classrooms, we're doing flipped schools is what was said, right? And that would be in turning in the school to the outside. And then that whole credit for work concept, and coming back to the 1940s where we had an employment rush where everybody didn't go to a school building, they went to a work site, and then they got the academics and the credit and the competencies through work. Yeah, so many of these great ideas are being passed around, and we're shaking things up is what it looks like.
Yeah, we better move on to
too. Yep. Hit this one, Sonal.
Yeah, so control issues in education, philosophy, trust, why. You know, I think whether it's education or even the private sector, corporate world, you know, I would have hoped over the last few months we have proven that, you know, a good majority of us can work at home, right? Right, can work at home, still be productive, still be successful, varying levels of success. But that's the other challenge with education, is that, you know, how involved are teachers and students in some of these controls, in making some of these decisions? Why does public opinion maybe not trust teachers as much? I mean, what's interesting is that I saw this article, I think it was in USA Today, and it was a couple of weeks ago, where they were talking about Teacher Appreciation Week, and they said it only took a global pandemic for teachers to get respect, right? And it just dawns on me. I was like, you know, Teacher Appreciation Week, you know, what profession really has a week devoted to them? And I'm not saying it's wrong or good or anything like that, but the fact that we have a week where we appreciate our teachers, when really we should be appreciating them each and every day, right? Each and every day. So there's no reason to have, you know, a dedicated week. It should happen every day, and that's that respect that I think this global pandemic has really highlighted, that, hey, you know, teachers are valuable, right? Teachers are valuable. They're important. Many of our teachers spend long hours working on this. So for us to try to control them and say, okay, you have to work from this time to this time, that's it. You know, and it's just, I could go on and spend hours talking about this, but do you have any other thoughts on this, Laura? So.
I know. Well, just also the trusting that learning might be happening organically with our young people, just knowing that evolutionarily, if we think about it, we were in a tribal situation. We were gathering and hunting, and we were in communities together, and we learned together through our older siblings, our elders, or through watching and seeing. And so then there's also not only just a trust level in terms of knowing that our teachers are doing incredible jobs and they're profound, and our school leaders also, most of them are enlightened enough to feel like they have a level of trust, but then it's also the learner, the trust that the learner is definitely capturing what they need to be capturing right now. Granted, having said that, there's still a level of privilege there in terms of what those experiences look like and how it's inequitable across environments. So we know that as well. But it's also permission to do a lot of those project-based learning, the problem-based learning. I like to call them the BLs, all the BLs: based learning, project-based learning, problem-based, experiential-based, work-based, you know, that kind of thing, and socially emotional based as well, SEL.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's that, right? So we've got like 2 more questions. We can go through them. Sonal, it's up to you. I don't know how everyone's feeling. We've got some good interaction happening in our chat box. This one needs a solution.
Yeah, and we've kind of touched upon this as far as, you know, that 80%, 20%, right? 20% of the population is still going to provide for those students. 80% isn't. So how are we addressing that? And that specifically speaks to privilege, right? Based upon your zip code should not affect the quality of education you get, right? And this is something that we've known about for a long time, right? Lauren, when I met you a few years ago, we had great conversations, and it's these same topics, but now with this global pandemic, there's a highlight on it, and I was like, well, we're still trying to figure out a solution. Well, hey, you know, now let's put a solution together and let's look at it. And I really think just we have to, you know, I go back to Nate, that quality versus equity, right? So and depending upon the different communities, we have to customize our education for the community, for almost each individual household, right? Because who knows what the situation is in that household. So, and yes, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, but you know what education is, we're not in education for the money, right? We're in it for the reward of the work that we do and the sense of feeling that we get from it. So it's a tough challenge, but I know we're all up for it. And I know we can find solutions for it.
Yeah, and there was an awesome term that someone used in the chat box, is identifying the change makers. Now, you and I both know we could be maybe some of those identifiers, but from a mass collective, how are we going to go about doing that and identifying who those change makers are? And to recognize the fatigue and the drain and the amount of time that it takes for a teacher to now prepare for entire curriculums being delivered in a virtual setting, especially if that's not their skill set. And we definitely know those who that is not their skill set, and that's why they chose not to teach, right? So there's so much going on, but a lot of folks are definitely thinking, and I'm glad to see that in the chat. You know, we're getting the brains going, as long as we ourselves don't get fatigued. And so maybe that's part of the permission, right, Sonal, is that the change makers, we need to watch out for them and make sure that their needs are being met so that we don't get that fatigue in that group too. Speaking of those change makers, we're coming up our end, and I love this graphic. So now let's end it with this, you know, as a way of wrapping everything together.
Yeah, I think your voice being important. So this is a graphic, and it's all pre-COVID-19, right? So this hasn't been changed, but it just shows you how important voice is in this whole process of education, right? Role models, engagement, students, teachers being excited about the process, and once again, that growth mindset, right? These are things that are not something that is new. It's not something that is per se like super innovative. It is something we've known about, right? We've known about, but we maybe have not focused as much on. Especially in CTE and STEM, you know, the hands-on experience is so powerful, right? And I know one challenge that I know all CTE teachers face is that, you know, how do we continue to provide that hands-on experience in a distance learning, remote, virtual, whatever you want to call it, a type of environment where we're not in a lab, in a classroom with all this equipment, all these resources. How can we still provide the necessary skill set that these students need to be successful? And I think one thing is, you know, getting everyone at the table, right? Their voice, industry, parents, communities, students, and teachers. It's interesting. Our school district has a committee for reopening the schools, which they have a number of teachers, a number of administrators, a number of people from our district central office. One group that I think is missing, which I've kind of shared with a few people, there aren't any students on there. And I was like, that's the end user. So what do we want to ask a student? Hey, would you feel comfortable going back to school in the fall if this was the case? Yes, teachers, absolutely. But why wouldn't we want like a high school student involved, or maybe someone from a student council or an athlete involved? And, hey, you know, what would make you feel comfortable going back to school? You know, what do you want to see? You know, because we could put all these measures in, right? All these social distancing measures and solutions. And if students aren't going to show up for school, then what do we do, right? So it's just interesting, those conversations. And I know many of those are going to happen over the summer, and everyone's going to try to do the right thing, which I very appreciate of our district of doing the right thing. But yeah, what else?
Yeah, exactly. And just to honor the fact too that we didn't talk about it out loud, but to really recognize the fact that we each learn differently, right? But we also have a high number of students with disabilities, and their needs really need to be recognized, and the needs of the instructors and the counselors and the social workers and the family co-design this, right? So in addition to students being asked and to supply their feedback, we also want to have them feel like they're part of the design, that they're owning it, right? And to recognize each of our learners being very different. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Chanel, what a fun time to have a conversation. Maybe I shouldn't use the word fun. I don't know about that because the topic is tough. But thank you, sir. I'm so honored to be here with you. And then each of you on the line, thank you for chiming in. Awesome participation in the chat box. This will come with the recording, so you get to review what people mentioned. And so therefore, that's a great way of learning from each other.
Exactly.
Thank you, Sonal. Thank you, Lauren. It's excellent. I was having fun with all sorts of ideas, brainstorming in the chat box with folks. I really appreciate everybody's input. Just want to remind you all that our next Let's Talk, the 3-part series that we sort of attached to for our IMSTEM network meeting is next week, May 28th. If you're interested, go to the Let's Talk Webinars web page on our website and sign up. This one's on centering students with disabilities. Lauren, you can go to the next slide. And I also want to remind all of you that our next IMSTEM network meeting is Thursday, September 24th. It sounds like a long ways away, but it'll get here faster than we know. And since we always meet virtually, nothing will stop us from getting together and sharing where we are. So join us. There'll be a newsletter coming out next month with a registration link. So keep an eye for that in your email. And lastly, if you need to reach any of us, you can contact us all at our email addresses. I want to thank Kathleen Fitzpatrick, Senior Program Manager at NAEP, who's been working in the background to keep things running smoothly. And we really look forward to your engagement, continued engagement in the IMSTEM network. And we hope you all have a great rest of the day and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. And Lauren and Sonal, thanks again. Great conversation.
Thank you, Mimi.
Thank you. Thanks, Nate, and thanks to everybody.